Colonialism and tribal societies. A tribe can be defined as people belonging to the same race, inhabiting a specific region of the country, using same language, and practicing the same culture and religion. The scheduled tribes in India are generally considered to be Adivasis, literally meaning indigenous people or original inhabitants. Scheduled tribe is an administrative term used for the purpose of administering certain specific constitutional privileges, protection, and benefits for the specific sections of the people considered historically disadvantaged and backward. The branch of science which deals with the study of tribal culture and lifestyle is called anthropology. As tribals have mostly led an isolated and nomadic life, it is very difficult to learn about them. Tribes have always existed in Indian subcontinent, and their existence can be traced to the Indus Valley civilization. References of tribes are available in Mahabharata. But tribes were never really a part of mainstream Indian life. They have always had a different socio-economic, politico-religious structure which continue to be an integral part of the traditional Indian social structure. A tribal group speaks a definite language, belongs to a distinct racial group, follows a typical religion, and performs different rituals. Tribals live in a natural surrounding. Depending on their physical environment, they practice a variety of economic activities like hunting, fishing, food gathering, and farming, etc. Family is the basic social unit of the tribal communities. Women perform various domestic and economic functions. Sometimes they are also engaged in agricultural operations. British colonial rule had a tremendous impact on their isolated and peaceful lives. The colonial state allowed the zamindars and moneylenders to plunder the tribal economy. Trivia: a colony is a part of an empire, and so colonialism is closely related to imperialism. They were deprived of their means of livelihood and were forced to adopt a new lifestyle. Many a times, they protested to save their territories and environment. Some noted tribal protest movements of the 18th century, which continued throughout the 19th century, were aimed at rebelling against these exploitative British strategies. Changes within tribal societies and economies. Some of the tribes like Gonds were able to form their independent states during the medieval period, as did the tribes of Northeast region. Gonds ruled over the independent Gondwana state from the 14th to 18th century until they were subjugated by the Marathas. They primarily lived by hunting, fishing, and food gathering. The Santhals have continued to be a sedentary cultivators, although many of them switched over to casual work in plantation, mines, and industry. The Bhils were nomadic by nature, but they have taken to sedentary life of settled cultivators. Such changes in the lives of tribals were brought about due to their interaction with non-tribals. Indian tribes learnt the art of agriculture quite early in the history. The land settlement policies introduced by the British adversely affected the traditional joint ownership structure of the tribals and created a lot of unrest in their societies. The government activities exercising exclusive control over forests and plundering forest wealth infuriated the tribals, who viewed it as an attempt to dislocate them. The activities of the Christian missionaries were also objected by some of the tribal societies. The developmental activities like mining, laying of roads, and railway tracks in the hilly and forested area depleted the resources of the tribals, bringing uncertainty, misery, and poverty among them. It had an adverse impact on their society. The introduction of various other kinds of laws were perceived as imposition of foreign culture by the tribals. Many of the tribal movements were directed against the landlords who exploited them by levying heavy taxes on them and restricted shifting cultivation in the forests. The religious movements and various other socio-religious reform movements introduced by the British were also unacceptable to many tribal societies. British wanted to keep the tribes isolated because they had realized that tribal people can be a potent force to deal with in the national movement. The steady expansion of British rule in India slowly began to affect the traditional lifestyle of the tribals. The colonial rule brought an end to the barter economy of the tribal societies and instead introduced a cash economy. With this, merchants initiated commercialization of agriculture. In order to grow cash crops, they acquired large tracts of agricultural land of the tribals and weakened their self-contained economy. Trivia: by 1920, nomadic pastoral tribes represented over a quarter of Iran's population.